I've been working hard to wrap up this 2,000-hour engine inspection on my S500. You know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back to the end of episode 2, and I explain what I mean by a 2,000-hour inspection. I'm going to call it the 2,000-hour engine reliability inspection because that explains a little bit more of what I'm trying to accomplish here. But I want to be able to take this S500 on a trip to California and back, and I want it to be reliable. I don't want to have any problems. So I have gone through a number of things. Now in tonight's episode of Kent's Garage, I'm not going to show you everything I've done because I've already done a separate YouTube video showing a lot of the items that I replaced or I checked or things I had to repair. And it even includes an oil leak on the breather cover, which is pretty common on these M113 and M112 engines. So I've done a video on that, a separate video, and I've even come up with a kit with all the supplies, proper sealant, and instructions on how to do this job right, okay? A lot of people don't do this right. In fact, when I pulled this breather cover off over here, I could tell somebody had done it previously. It had it all gooped up with silicone. It was just a mess. And of course, it was leaking. So there's some things you have to do. But if you have one of these M112 or M113 engines from about the late 90s up to 2006 or so, you know, at some point you're going to have to deal with some oil weeping out of those breather covers. So I took care of that. I also went to the front of the engine here, did a lot in the accessory section of the engine. That's where you can have a lot of things wearing out at around 2,000 hours. 2,000 hours times 60 miles an hour is 120,000 miles. So as I said, this car has about 114,000 miles on it. So it's just prime for this type of inspection. So we'll roll our sleeves up today. I'll show you a few quick clips of what I've done and what I've been doing, but be sure and check out the YouTube video that I did on this engine repair. That'll give you all the detail that you need to see. Now shortly we're going to roll this S500 out. We're going to roll in my son's 300TE wagon. Let me take you back to last week. He emailed me a question, and then of course he shows up at the farm with his wagon saying, "Hey Dad, can you help me out?" Get ready, come on, come on, get the hair straight, get the smile on the face. Don't always start out the scene.
You may be wondering.
You've got to start the scene with a smile, okay?
You may be wondering.
Okay, Matthew,
Who overdubs all of Kent's videos?
And
well, yes, it's
does
true.
anybody wonder who does that beautiful website that we have?
You may be wondering.
You're looking right here at him. That's my son, Matthew. So he's just arrived here this morning with a problem with his 300TE wagon. Hey, Matt, tell me what's going on here.
I got a loose shifter.
What do you mean a loose shifter? What does that mean?
When it's an automatic. When you shift into gear, the lever is clunky. It seems like it's not engaging until you kind of wiggle it a little bit. Sometimes you put it in park and it doesn't fully go into park, so you can't start the car.
So what do you think's wrong with it based on all the website work you've done and all the videos you've looked at?
I was Googling around. It's hard not to find anything with a green glove in the picture. That moment when you search for a problem on the internet and you find your dad
green gloves, right?
runs the internet, still telling you how it works.
Okay, why would I be willing to fix this for you? You know, I don't do shop work for people. Why? Come on.
Happy dollars, maybe?
Give me some cash. No, come on, sir.
For coffee.
In all seriousness, of course you're my son, but what else?
I think I have a market opportunity of providing you with a unique technical problem you have not solved on camera yet.
All right, we've gone over this before, but I think it needs repeating. The importance of these shift bushings and how easy they are to replace if you have the right parts and the right tools. So I'm going to take this into the shop and we get it in there, get it up on the lift. I'll show you how quickly we can fix this particular problem. Thanks for bringing it out.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can make a few bucks.
Mine.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right, thanks.
There you go. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try to remember. Come on, come on, come on. Okay. Look, we got the 300TE wagon up on the lift. I don't even need to look underneath there to know what's wrong with it. And of course, I'm looking at the question that my son posted on Facebook, and somebody answered it for him. So we already know the answer if you're following the questions on my Facebook page. Well, we're going to walk under there together and take a peek. But this is so common. I mean, this is something we've been sending out kits for the last 15 years. I think one of the first kits we ever produced after the fuse replacement kit was the kit to fix this problem right here. So come on underneath, let's take a look and I'll show you what's wrong. Okay, sure enough, it's the bushing on the transmission shift lever. It's totally gone, and you can see the rod moving back and forth and how much play is created just from the failure of that really inexpensive part. In this video, I'm not going to go over the step-by-step procedure, how we're going to replace that, but we use this tool right here, folks. This is the tool that we make here right in our own shop. And without this tool, it is really difficult to get this really cheap bushing in that shift lever on the transmission. Believe that? This little cheap part can cause so many problems. I've actually seen a Mercedes roll down a hill and crash into a tree because it came out of park because this shift bushing was missing, just like you saw in this 300 TE. Imagine trying to get your hand up in here. See that new bushing installed? We use this tool and we can just reach up in there and squeeze that bushing right into the shift arm. What I'm going to do now is I'll just put some links for the videos. I've done 2 or 3 other videos on this problem, and I'll let you look at those in more detail if you think you might have a problem. But let me say this. If you have an older Mercedes-Benz, 1995 or older, I would recommend that you change both of these shift bushings. You can get the tool and the bushings from me on my website. Do it before they fail, okay? Because they are. If they haven't been replaced in the last 10 years, I can guarantee they're going to fail. Just when Matthew was getting ready to leave, he said, "Hey Dad, one other thing. I got some water dripping on my head in the morning when I drive away on this sunroof panel right above my head on the driver's side." And I'm thinking, oh, okay, he wants me to work on the sunroof. Well, what are fathers for anyway, right? Sometimes these sunroof problems can be a real pain, as you know if you watch my video series on fixing tilting sunroofs. And this is a tilting sunroof. It's obviously leaking water. Now, a lot of people think it's the seal, but it's not the seal. The seal's designed to actually let water through, and there's channels and drains underneath to route the water out to the ground. And I'm thinking, okay, this is probably a plugged drain. And sure enough, we got in there with our tools and we started working on this and we were able to clean out the drains, okay? So if you're interested in knowing how to clean out your drains or test for water blockage in your own sunroof, I've got a couple videos on my website. I also have a tip video on how to kind of fix a sticking sunroof and you don't need to remove the sunroof. It's kind of a simple tip, but it's on my website. You just go there and put in tilting sunroof and you'll be able to view that video, because a lot of times there's reasons that you might not be aware of that cause these sunroofs to stick. And by sticking, I mean you close it and when you go to try to open it, it jams up and won't drop down and move back. So if you got sunroof problems on your old Benz, I've probably got the most complete set of resources in the world to help you fix these type of sunroofs here. My favorite tool of the week, well, here it is, folks. That's right, torque wrenches. Particularly very small 1/4-inch drive torque wrenches. And you'll find as you work on newer Mercedes-Benzes that there are some extremely critical low torque settings that must be adhered to, like these breather covers on the M112 and the M113 engines. It's, you know, you don't want to guess on these. Even I am very reluctant to do it by hand for these type of applications. But when you're looking at low setting torque wrenches, like this one here goes from 0 to 7 Newton meters, or from 0 to 60 inch-pounds. That's pretty low, all right? This one here, which is a click stop, goes from 0 to 24 Newton meters. Now, I use these in different applications. I particularly like this beam-style torque wrench when I'm doing anything under 4 Newton meters. I mean, the accuracy on these beam styles is really good when you're talking about very, very low settings. Now, it's not to say the click stop style torque wrenches are not that accurate. But I found that particularly on the real low range that you can have some calibration problems. And these are known to need recalibrating. Well, if you have a problem with the beam style torque wrench, all you have to do is make sure this pointer is centered out at 0, and if it's not, you come in here and bend this particular rod to get it right on 0 before you do any torquing. Now, over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be researching some sources for these torque wrenches, and if I find what I feel are high quality wrenches at an affordable price, I'll be posting these on my website. I can't believe how many things there are to fix on these old cars. In fact, every time I see something, I think, oh, there's a challenge. Let's see if we can find a better way to fix it. Or in the case this past week, I decided, well, let's come up with a kit to help fix it, because some of the ways that I saw recommended that this job be done I didn't really like, so I started experimenting with some different tools, some different applications, and so here I am, coming up with another kit. Anybody want to guess what this is? I'm not going to show you too close because you may be able to guess it, but I want you to try to guess exactly what type of kit I'm working on. I'm going to keep working on it this coming week, and I'll come back in the next episode and we'll show you what this really is, okay? This is going to be my weekly garage alert, and this particular alert is something I'm very passionate about, because if you've watched my other videos, you've already heard me harping on this. So my alerts are going to be probably a little bit of harping, maybe like Kent gets on his high horse, okay? Because there's some things I see out there that shouldn't be done. They should be avoided at all costs, and this is one of them. I want to show it to you right here on the workbench. Does anybody want to guess what this is? Kind of looks like gummy worms, right? Maybe I could go fishing out of the lake tonight. Boy, when I see this stuff, it almost makes my blood boil, because it's no secret I do not like RTV silicone sealant. I think it should be outlawed. Even in applications where factories use it, it doesn't seem to work that well. And of course, the downsides seem to be worse than any positive benefit. This is a breather cover on an M113 Mercedes V8 engine, and these breather covers are quite prone to leak. They don't use any gasket, they just use RTV silicone in this groove here, and that seats over the top of a ridge on the valve cover. And I would say every engine out there, both the V6s and the V8s, are leaking after 80,000 miles. So obviously this stuff doesn't work that well. And the thing is, I see so much of this inside engines getting stuck in the oil pump pickup screens, getting stuck in oil passage, critical oil passages like oil going to your crank and bearings, that I say, come on. If you're going to use this in factory applications that you don't have any other option, please don't use it in excess like this. I mean, you only need a little bit. I have done a video along with a kit that provides the right sealant and some of the other tools you'll need to get this job done right, because I would encourage you, if you want to do this job yourself, it's not that difficult, and if you want to get it done right, I highly recommend you do it yourself, because whoever does it is not going to spend the time and the care that it requires to make sure that you get this back on the engine and sealed properly, so it's going to last another 5 to 10 years. So please, folks, if you have to use RTV silicone sealant, use it sparingly. Okay, it's on to the questions of the week, and I want you to know I do appreciate those short and sweet questions, as I talked about last week. And I received quite a few of them, and I'm going to address those first in this question and answer session. But first, I want to answer a question that is an opinion question, and you know from last week how I feel about answering opinion questions. But it also brings up another question, because a lot of people are wondering, okay, so this is how the question goes. What are your opinions on the W202 versus the W203 on improvements, reliability, etc.? Well, first off, that's an opinion question, and I'm not going to be answering opinion questions in this format. Secondly, it addresses a couple cars that I don't own. And this is very important you understand this, because a lot of people are wondering, Kent, why don't you do videos on the 107 chassis? Why don't you do videos on the C-Class? Why don't you do videos on the R-Class? Why don't you do videos on AMGs? Why don't you do videos on the M-Class? And et cetera, et cetera. Well, I only do videos on cars I own and live with. It's very important that you understand this, because if I just got a car, drove it around the block and said, hey man, I just drove this C-Class here and it's a great car and it's really wonderful and it runs great. Well, that would be an opinion, and I'm trying to avoid that, okay? I'm trying to give you real live problems that I have to deal with on my own cars that I've lived with and owned for a while. So I can't own all these cars, and I don't have time to shoot all these videos, because it kind of brings up another question that sometimes people ask about a certain chassis. Why don't I do more videos like on the W140 chassis? Well, to be honest with you, I've done a number of videos on the 140 chassis, and the response has not been very good. Sorry. But I have to focus my energies on those cars which are the popular models that people tend to want to view the videos and learn more about repairing them. Okay, I hope you understand that. It's not that I have anything against some of these chassis. I have not owned them, or I do not have the time to do videos on every single Mercedes that has ever been built. Okay, number one question that's short and sweet. How do I align my wheels on my 1989 190E 2.6? Short and sweet, take it to an alignment shop. I do not believe this is a DIY job. I'm sure some of you can figure out how to do this, but a lot of times, particularly with front-end work, it's better to just take it to a good, reliable front-end shop. They'll get it done quicker, and it probably won't cost as much as you consider your own time doing it yourself. Next question, what oil do you use in the 6.3? Well, I don't use synthetic oil. And the reason is the engine has been sitting so long, and the seals, I'm sure, are a little dry in that engine. And anytime you put synthetic oil in an old engine that's been sitting around for a long time, you risk getting a lot of oil leaks, because synthetic tends to seep by seals and gaskets a lot more easily than regular oil. I use Castrol 1040. Okay, next question. Super simple yes or no question for the next week. Will the transmission from a 1992 201 190E 2.3 fit in a 97 C230? No. Okay, next question. That's short and sweet. I'm amazed that this beauty of an old timer, now he's referring to 6.3, isn't rusted through. Why? So this person is asking, why isn't my 6.3 rusted through? Was this the Mercedes-Benz approach to material sourcing? I think a lot of people forget the number one reason for rust through is road salt, okay? And I've seen this so many times. In fact, I had a buddy of mine just 2 days ago went down to Seattle to look at this 16 valve for me. It was a 190 2.3 16 valve, rather rare car. And he sent me some pictures, and I could see the bubbling and the fenders above the fender flares. And so I quickly texted him back. I said, could you ask the owner where this car came from? And he came back and said it came from Chicago. Well, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Sorry, Chicago, but that's one place where they really use the salt, okay? So like I've said in a lot of my other videos and my manuals, you just want to avoid getting those cars from the salt belt, okay? Next question. Kent, do you still run any of your cars on WVO? I have 2 124 wagons that I'm driving on it, and I enjoy all your videos. Okay, I currently do not drive any of my diesels on waste cooking oil. And the reason is you have to drive them all the time. If you have an engine that you let sit, and a lot of my cars sit because I have so many, I can't drive them on a daily basis. And basically, if you're running vegetable oil in your old diesel, you need to be driving it every day, because if you let it sit with vegetable oil in the injection pump or the injectors, you have a big problem, okay? So I just can't do that anymore because I don't drive my diesels enough. Next question. This comes from a viewer up in Sweden. He says, I really enjoy your show. Right now I'm restoring an M103 engine from a W124 with a 5-speed manual. All right. That assembly is going in my 108 280 SE. I know that this is going to be a big hassle. So I'm wondering if you have seen this done before and if you have any pointers. No, I have not seen it done before, and a lot of people ask me, can you do this, or you can do this or that? And the question right behind that says, hey, what engines can be swapped into a 110 Fintail? Is it possible to swap in something more modern and get rid of the swing axle and the kingpin suspension? And as I've said before, anything is possible. It has to do with, is it practical, or do you have the time and the money to do it? A 103 5-speed conversion of 108 would Could be a lot of fun, but let me tell you, you're going to run into some real big issues and get everything fit. And then you got to deal with, okay, what about the rear end ratio? Are you going to change the rear end and so on and so on? So if you want to do these wild conversions, I'm not opposed to them at all. But just consider what time you think it'll take and double it and go for it, okay? I think for me, it's too late in my life to go after these kind of projects where I'm doing major engine swaps between chassis, all right? Okay, and here's a final question. Hey Kent, any thoughts on using a W116 300SD with non-ABS brakes during the winter in the Northeast? I'm afraid even with good studded snow tires that stopping will be a real issue considering the weight and the car not having any ABS. Well, I'll take you back about 20 years ago when I bought my second Mercedes-Benz. My first was a 240D 123 chassis. But the second one was a European W116 350 SE, and driving that car is when I really kind of fell in love with Mercedes, because I could not believe how well that car handled, particularly the braking. It was something about the way the Mercedes engineers, engineered that feedback in the brake pedal. Even before the age of ABS, it seems like you had total control of the feel through that braking. I remember driving that 350 SE down a rough, rutted dirt road at 80 miles an hour. And that's when I kind of woke up and said, oh, well, Mercedes really are different. So to answer your question, it's going to be a personal decision on your part, and of course, you got icy roads back there. But I'm often amazed here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get anywhere near the snow and ice that you do. But every time it ices up and the roads get all iced up, guess which cars that you see in the ditch? Most of them are SUVs with ABS brakes. Because I think people drive beyond their abilities. They drive thinking, well, I've got a four-wheel drive car, I've got ABS, therefore I can just go like crazy down this snowy, icy road. And that's why a lot of people end up in the ditch. So I think as far as the old 116 with studded tires, you learn to feel the brakes. You drive it with some caution. I don't think you're going to have any problem. But once again, that is my opinion. As I wrap up this episode, there's a couple things I want to point out. First off is concerning this 2,000-hour reliability inspection. I know you didn't get to see a lot of actual work in this week's episode, but I'm posting a number of videos this week. There'll be 3 or 4 videos that I'll post throughout this coming week concerning that subject, and we'll focus on that S500 that you saw at the beginning of this particular video. Now, right here is my 76 240D. This is a W115 chassis, and it will be featured in next week's episode because I'm going to be working on this car all this week. So we'll do a lot of filming, we'll talk a lot about what we're going to be doing. Particularly, we're going to be focusing on the engine. You know, I have a really good video, on-demand video, on my website on how to detail out an engine, particularly if it's dirty, oily, or greasy. But this engine is super clean. Look here, you can see I've cleaned it all up, but look, it's got corrosion, it's got bolts that are rusty, it's got some rust on the cylinder head, and there's little spots of corrosion here and there. So this is going to be like super extreme detailing on this particular engine because I want to make it look really nice. And what are all the little tricks I'm going to use to get this engine looking nice and to get rid of some of those ugly corrosion and rust spots inside the engine. We'll also be doing some maintenance on the top end of the engine, which I think you'll find interesting. So this will be the featured vehicle in the next coming episode of Kent's Garage. So in conclusion, I'd like to wish all my viewers safe and reliable motoring always.